In 1 minute, I will leave the floor to Soraya Cipolla, who proposed to us a workshop. So this will be the first workshop of this year's conference. And I am very excited for what she has planned for us because I am the resident media person in the BRG leadership team and also a teacher, as so many of us. So I hope to get a lot of insights from this workshop that is titled Teaching by Plus Cinema, Literature and Other Media. So let me introduce Soraya, who is very welcome here once again. She participated in a lot of different activities we've done in the recent years. So Soraya Cipolla is a PhD candidate in Italian Studies and Queer Studies at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Her research focuses on LGBTQI+ representation in the 20th and 21st century Italian literature and cinema. Her dissertation, Queer Spectres, Sapphic Desire in Italian Literature and Cinema, 1980-2023, explores the meaning of ghostly and monstrous Sapphic narratives in Italian culture. Such an exciting topic. Research interests include race, gender, and identity within contemporary language and literature, promoting gender-inclusive language in the Italian language classroom, a much-needed topic too, and implementing inclusive pedagogy. Soraya has over 10 years of teaching experience in higher education institutions in the USA, and so she proposed these workshops to us, and we are very happy to hear what she has planned. Soraya, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for attending to this workshop. I'm so excited to share and to hear about your work and your experiences. I'm going to share a discussion note, Google Doc. I don't know if I can. I have a QR code in the PowerPoint, but I also wanted to give you the link just in case. And then I'm gonna share my screen. And let's get started. Okay, so what I planned for today is for us to introduce each other so we know who is in the room, at least. And for that, we're going to use the Google Doc. I'm going to give you an overview of the critical frameworks that right now are inspiring my teaching. But again, they can change, who knows, you know. And I'm going to show you a sample lesson plan that I prepared a couple of years ago. Just as an example of how I do things, and I don't expect that it's perfect, of course. I'm actually eager to learn from other people. And then I'm going to give you some individual work time in which you can share reflections and ideas based on my questions in the Google Doc, and then we can reconvene for a discussion. So first of all, I wanted to start with the why, thinking about teaching by media and what guides you in the methodologies we use. And while planning this workshop, I was thinking of my why, and I realized that, of course, it's connected to my research on gender and sexuality, but also it's a sort of a mission to give space to queer identities, and thinking about queer media and by plus media, of course, as anticipatory illumination of a queer future, some moment in which we can glimpse of the future we all wanted. And those moments can inspire us to work for this future. And I want to inspire my students to do that kind of work. And I got a QR code for the discussion in Google Docs, so you can all use that if you prefer to have that in your phone, and there is a link in the chat. But before we go in our Google Doc, I want to have you all introduce yourself in the Google Doc so we can know who is in the room. So just share name, institution, and think about what's your why. So, what does inspire you? Think about like, and again, you don't need to share your name if you don't want to. You can do it, of course, and you can just introduce yourself and not think about this why, because it's a big question in a way. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes to just type in and see what's okay. I see people. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of a reading on what I see and just the one that are catching my eye. So please don't take it personal. Um, so I see understanding identities, and it might have an effect on social at a social level. I see a lot of people that are working on by plus media, of course, for their research. People are eager to think, how can I incorporate that in my teaching? And I mean, it's a process. It's not as easy. And I also understand we come from different institutions and different cultures. We cannot all do that, you know, makes sense. I am speaking from the US. I'm in a blue state. I can do whatever I want in my teaching, but I also understand that it's not always the case. Um, what else I see? It's yeah. Ooh, I see someone wants to create Ileana wants to create a platform for bi solidarity. That sounds great. Yeah. Yeah, I think like teaching can be applied to any kind of organizing. If you think about like, I mean, you need to adapt it a little bit, but it's still a form of teaching, of course. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm gonna share myself a lesson plan that again is not perfect. It's just what I did, and I'm gonna tell you what inspires me a little bit. And in terms of teaching methodologies, and I have a resource page that you can use to check my inspirations, and you can have some resources. So right now, I'm situating my teaching into a critical literacy and experiential learning. So critical literacy is a methodologies that aim to find discriminations in media, and that we want to stimulate students to uncover underlying messages. So think about what are they saying and why. So there's a lot of reflection in there. And we also want students to question power structures. So that's critical literacy. In terms of experiential learning, I try to have students do things. So I give them practical tasks, and I also think about the value of emotions. Something I did not include in this presentation, but it could be interesting for you to explore, is trauma-informed pedagogy. It's worth to check it out. But in general, think about all you give your students will have an impact. And sometimes it won't. I sometimes students will surprise you of like I taught a class to high school students, and they had to do presentations, and one of them did it on Italian true crime, and it was kind of gore. And I was like, okay, that's nice. You know, they're high school students, so you need to be very encouraging. But I was like, oh my God, I needed a trigger warning for this. And everybody in the room was like, yeah, that's great. So they might surprise you, you know. And of course, another critical framework is intersectionality and critical race theory. And in terms of like my lesson plan that I'm proposing for today is like I taught a workshop on Italian cinema, and I chose ULA. I went to something very pop, very simple to understand for my target audience, which is American students between 18 21. And that changed, you know. And I had goals in mind. I always recommend to have goals. What do you want to obtain with this lesson plan? And this lesson plan goal was like learning about contemporary LGBTQ plus media, cinema in this case, and reflect on contemporary bi plus representation. The American classroom is always flipped, so we have students prepare in advance, which I really like. I was trained in Italy as well, where we do lecture and then you study. I think the flipped classroom promote discussions because students are prepared and they can share. And as a first activity, I had um, like very generic questions to situate their knowledge, because the idea is that we build on their previous knowledge. So what do you know about LGBTQ plus rights in Italy? Look up at this specific Italian law. Do you think there are differences between Italy and the US? Why? So I have students finding relevant information compared to familiar context. And then what I do when I propose a media is having them thinking about questions, thinking about details that we will then discuss in class. So in this case, I had them like watch the film and think about this question. So observe the main characters, who's comfortable with their identity, who's not. What's Marina, one of the protagonists' social background? What's Federica's social background? This is a film that talks about sapphic relationship. One of the protagonists defined herself as a lesbian, and the other defined herself as a bisexual woman. And there is a lot of drama, of course. But the idea is that they think about intersectionally what their social background will do in their perception of their identity. And then in class, we did activities that are inspired from their homework. So, and in this case, I had them thinking about the title, so a little bit more of analysis of the title. And this workshop was for students that are in Italian language classrooms, but it was taught in English. So they are supposed to have a little bit of knowledge of Italian. And I wanted them to go a little bit deeper in class. So how would you describe the relationship with their sexual orientation for each character? What does it mean, this word borghese? Can you translate it in English? What would that mean? And so I start with context, and then I lead to the part in which we analyze the media. And I did open-ended questions about character sexual orientation, so they need to get to the answer themselves. And think about intersectionality. In this case, there are two white women, but you know, this intersectional approach can be enriched by race and other social cultural elements. Something that I like to do in my classrooms is thinking about what students can do with what they learn, so they can learn from this activity. And I usually have them writing or like presenting in a specific way. So in this case was write a review on a Google Docs. How would you describe the presentation of lesbian and bisexual identity. And another activity that is a little bit more high tech is you're a content creator, create an Instagram post that promotes this film. So those are technology assisted activities, and for Google Docs it's pretty easy to use. For Canva, you may need to take a couple of meetings to familiarize yourself sometimes and the students with this technology. Okay. So now let's collect our ideas. I have two questions in the Google Docs. Feel free to, I think we will have enough time to probably go through both of them. So one is, how do you approach historical and contemporary bi-plus identity in your teaching? Do you have any successful lesson plan you would like to talk about? So think about what worked, what didn't. I give you an overview of the critical frameworks I mentioned in the Google Docs. So please share if you would like to incorporate any of those in your work and how. So let's have a idea brainstorm and 5 minutes before the end of this workshop, we can all share. And of course, you can ask questions as well. Please feel free to share anonymously. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. I think we can get started on sharing and questions. Um, so thank you, Lucia, for sharing about the value of Heartstopper. That's true. Like, honestly, I feel like in the US, it depends really where they are from. So, like, if you're in a blue state, they're more receptive with this topic. If they're not really. So it really depends on who you work with. And I noticed that intersectionality sometimes is not as easy to grasp as we would like. And it really depends. It changes also years to year. Like, I don't know. I noticed a change in their interaction with technology in the last 2 years for some reason. Like, students now don't like it as much. So it's interesting. It's always different. Um, and yeah, the idea of trigger warning and content forecast is very important. Sometimes you don't notice, but I'm sure that at least two people needed that, so it's very important, I think. Um, and what else do I have here? Experiential learning. Yeah. Uh, and I didn't mention it, but in my classes, I think it was written, but I forgot to say that. I usually start with all class discussions, and then I do small group, and then we share again. Um, and that's useful because a lot of people are not uh, very good at talking in public. They're very shy. So it's always useful to offer them different ways to share. So you can give them like a sort of a discussion post, then in class they can talk in small groups and then share. Um, so make sure you have different stakes in terms of how much they need to talk in public and how they can share. And in terms of like biplus identities, I know it's not easy to do it always, but I think as simple as finding representation, it's always good to include some media that have that. And what I do is also sometimes mention it, as simple as that. Like when I use this lesson plan that was about cinema and something more contemporary, but you can do it with masterpiece as well. Like think about reflecting on what does it mean in that specific era. Can it be called bisexuality or not? I think that's always a good question to give students. So yeah, I do that for like Goliarda Sapienza, it's probably familiar for Italians. Sibilla Leramo, another Italian author. But in general, think about this historical figure and how they can be framed as by plus people in the past, and make it into a discussion, because of course it's not a given that is they are bisexual for the time. I'm thinking about Virginia Woolf, as simple as that, and like make it into like a discussion. Let's see. And usually students have good insights. There is also a question about by plus erasure from the curriculum. Thank you, Lawrence. Um, so the question is that I really appreciate how your work highlights the erasure by plus identities in both research and teaching practices. I was wondering, do you see specific methodological changes that could help ensure by plus parents or students are unintentionally excluded in future studies and curricula? So that's a very good question, and something that probably we should all think about how we do that. I can say that I think we're talking more like high school, I sense. My impression, I worked briefly in summer schools for our high school students. And what I noticed is that they have a very holistic approach into making sure all identities are respected, and that's always, I think, a good start. So like asking questions, do not assume gender identity, do not assume sexual orientation, and I think that's the simplest thing you can do. But I don't know if anybody has other ideas or something they would like to share. um,
We can
I
also
think we can,
give,
yeah, please.
give open the mic for people that raise their hands,
Mhm.
just so you know, the
Oh
technical.
yes, please go ahead.
If someone wants to contribute, we can open your mic. Um, I will add one simple thing now that I have my mic already opened. I'm very privileged to be able to do that. Nobody's gonna fire me, but I also come out very soon in the semester. So I'm also using, let's say, my own identity as a way to make students feel very free to share theirs or know that I'm a safe person or as safe as I can be to talk and to share because it's not a given. So I try to make myself very visibly open to this kind of conversation. I see, Jace, your hand. Let me open your mic.
Can you hear me?
Hey.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation. I think it was this workshop. It was really, really great. And something that I just really wanted to mention about the importance of incorporating media when studying or exploring BI+ experiences. Um, During my time doing Bisexual Killjoy as a podcasting community space, a question that we keep getting over and over is, do you know of any bi movies that you can recommend to me? Do you know of any bi series other than Heartstopper? I feel like everybody knows about Heartstopper. Uh, and we've gotten questions about what counts and what doesn't count. And the importance of creating literacy around reading into pieces of literature and media and what exactly what are the hidden messages in here is crucial, especially at a time like this where assumptions aren't helping anyone.
Yes, thank you so much. Absolutely. Yeah, it's also not that simple, I think, to find bypass media in general, because I think they're often categorized is either as like lesbian or gay film, right? So it's not that simple. I would say you need to know them. You need to already have watched them and consumed those media. But when we can, we should always include them. I often also, I mean, I'm gonna mention a lot of Italian cases because that's what I do. But thinking about like public figures that are by and what are their media is always the best way to go. But yeah, it's very important to include them at least. We start from this. Yeah, thank you. I see. Oh, there is a question for Lucia. Do you have any preferred way to come out in the class? That's a great question.
Um, I think I just randomly mentioned something very early, and I'm not saying I am Lucia, I'm your professor, la la la, I'm also bi, but very kind of, I don't know, I usually make a stupid comment about the fact that I cannot sit properly on a chair because I'm bisexual or that I'm messy, or, I joke about it in a way that it's silly, but also in passing because I want them to know that this is just one thing to know about me. also very much into Star Wars, and those two things are part of who I am. So that's one thing that I've done previously. I also always have at least a rainbow pin on me all the time. And I see Ellen writing about reflexivity in her research methods.
Yeah, that's a good way to go. I personally don't do it as much because I never know what I have in my classroom, unfortunately. The US system is complicated in a way. Like again, I'm in a blue state, I can teach whatever I want, but we have very conservative students sometimes. And it's not always a good idea to come out, unfortunately, especially if you're not like when I teach gender studies, yes, it's so easy because that's the whole environment. Everybody's queer in that department. But if you teach Italian, you never know. So it's a little bit more complicated, I think. Yeah, reflexive statement, yeah. Yeah, it's always a good idea to have students thinking about the media and relate them to their own personal experience. Yeah, at the moment it's very complicated in this country. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think we're out of time. I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Few minutes. I just
borrowed minutes, but it's okay. You can wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you so much all for sharing, and thank you for participating. The Google Doc is still there. If you want to connect, I give you my email address, so feel free to reach out. We can organize something. I'm always happy to participate and share and use our knowledge to cope with this time, especially in the US. Thank you all. I really appreciate you
So
all.
much. Soraya, this was brilliant.